Attacking a military convoy, that's one thing. But to target and possibly abduct a brigadier general, well, that's something else entirely. That's a direct and audacious challenge to a nation's entire security structure. And it could mean we're entering a dangerous new phase in a very long, very difficult conflict. The first reports coming in are pretty stark. According to Premium Times, an ambush in Nigeria's Borno state led to significant military casualties. But the real headline here is the reported abduction of a very senior officer. You can imagine this immediately raises some urgent questions about intelligence, about security, and about the overall strategy. So to really make sense of what's happening, we need to look a bit deeper. Welcome to Africa Watch 360, calm, clear, and focused news you can trust. We look deeper so you understand better.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll break down exactly what happened in this ambush. Then we'll get into the key players involved, some important context there. We'll also ask, is this a real change in tactics? After that, we'll look at what this means for Nigeria's national security. And finally, we'll talk about what to watch for next, because this is very much an unfolding story.
Okay, first things first. Let's lay out the facts as we know them so far, based on what's been reported. It's really important to get these core details straight before we try to understand the bigger picture. So the main event here was an ambush. You have a Nigerian military convoy. It's moving through a region that's known to be volatile, and it gets hit. The attackers are believed to be from the Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP. And this is key. The convoy was on the move. They weren't just sitting in a defensive position. Let's drill down into the specifics. So this reportedly happened in early November 2025. The location was near Malam Fatori in Borno State, an area that's really been at the center of this insurgency for a long time. The target? A Nigerian Army convoy. And again, the attackers are reported to be ISWAP. Initial reports on casualties say that at least 7 soldiers were killed. Now, it's really important to remember that right after an event like this, these numbers are almost always preliminary. They could definitely change as we get more verified information. And now for the most critical piece of this story. Multiple sources are reporting that a Nigerian Army brigadier general was abducted in the attack. And I have to stress this. Right now, this information comes from security sources who spoke to news outlets. It has not been confirmed by an official statement from the Nigerian Army. So until we get that official word, we have to treat this as a developing report. So to really get why this ambush is such a big deal, we need to take a quick look at the main players. This isn't some new conflict, not at all. It's really the latest chapter in a struggle that's been going on for more than a decade. Let's talk about the reported attacker, ISWAP. It's really crucial to understand who they are. They're a splinter group that broke away from the original Boko Haram back in 2016. And a key difference in their strategy has always been their focus. Where Boko Haram became notorious for attacking civilians indiscriminately, ISWAP has tended to focus on what you'd call hard targets. So the military, the police, symbols of the state. They do this to try and position themselves as some kind of alternative government. So what you have is this clash between two very different forces, with completely opposite goals. On one side, you've got the Nigerian Armed Forces. They're a traditional, conventional military. Their job is to defend the country's sovereignty. They've got the air power, the formal structure. But on the other side, you have ISWAP, an insurgency that relies on asymmetric tactics. Their strength is completely different. It's all about local knowledge, being mobile, and being able to pick the time and place of their attacks. Let me try an analogy. Think of it like a long-running dispute in a neighborhood. For years, maybe one group was known for just, vandalizing public property. It's damaging, sure, but it's kind of predictable. This attack, though, this is different. This is like that same group walking right past the public property and going straight for the head of the neighborhood watch, targeting him at his home. It suggests they know his routine, his schedule, his weaknesses. It's a calculated move. It's meant to create fear and show that they can get to anyone, even the person in charge. So, this brings us to the real analytical question here. We've talked about what happened. Now let's dig into what it means. Is this just another tragic attack in a long line of them? Or are we seeing a deliberate and frankly a very dangerous shift in ISWAP's strategy? But here's where the story gets more interesting. The real significance here isn't just about the number of casualties. It's about the target. Going after a general, that's a high-risk, high-reward kind of move. And it tells you a whole lot about the confidence and the capabilities of these insurgents. So what does this potential shift in strategy really tell us? Well, an attack like this isn't random. It's a calculated statement.
First off, targeting senior leadership is a classic insurgent tactic. The goal is to hit morale hard. Second, and this is probably the most important part, you just can't pull off an ambush like this without really good intelligence. It means the attackers probably knew the convoy's route, what was in it, and its timing. That points to a pretty sophisticated intelligence network. It's also a direct challenge to the Army's ability to move freely, and you can't overstate the psychological impact this has, both on the soldiers and on civilians.
And that leads to a really tough question that the Nigerian military has to be asking itself right now. An attack this precise, it immediately brings up two very uncomfortable possibilities. Was it a massive failure of their own intelligence gathering? Or, and this is maybe even more worrying, was there a leak from inside their own operations? Either way, it's something that demands a very urgent and serious investigation.
Okay, let's just pause for a second here. Here's the part most people miss. A lot of times, the conversation is about, how many soldiers are on the ground or what kind of weapons are being used. But the real shift that this attack might signal is on a totally different battlefield, the battle of intelligence. To go from just opportunistic attacks to these kinds of precisely targeted operations against senior commanders, well, that's a huge leap in an insurgency's capability.
All right, so let's zoom out a bit. An attack like this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It sends ripples across the entire security landscape, and it fits into a much bigger picture.
The key thing to grasp here are the ripple effects. So, in the short term, you can expect military morale to take a hit. Troops might have to be more cautious. For civilians in the area, fear is obviously going to go up. But the long-term effects are maybe even more significant. For one, the military will have to completely rethink its security protocols for senior officers. And think about this. If people start to feel the state can't even protect its own generals, their trust in the government's ability to protect them can really start to fade. And for the rest of the region, it raises some pretty serious questions about Nigeria's entire counterterrorism strategy.
When you boil it all down, it comes to this. This ambush, assuming the details are confirmed, is more than just a military fight. It's symbolic. It's basically ISW sending a message that no one is safe, that their reach goes all the way to the top of the military command. It's a direct challenge, really, to the authority and the power of the Nigerian state.
Look, this story is far from over. What just happened is incredibly serious. But what happens next is what's really going to set the course for this conflict for the next few months, maybe even years.
So what should we be watching for as this unfolds? Well, number one, obviously, is an official statement from the Nigerian Army. How they respond is going to be critical. Number two, we need that official confirmation on the general's status. 3, we'll be looking for any messages or claims of responsibility from ISWAP itself. That could give us more clues about their capabilities. And finally, watch for any actual changes in how the military operates on the ground. Do they get more aggressive, or do they pull back and get more cautious? So we've looked at the tactics, the strategy, and the big picture for national security. But now we'd like to hear from you. When you consider all of it, the intelligence challenge, the morale, this asymmetric type of warfare, what do you think is the single most critical challenge that security forces are up against in this conflict? We're interested to see your perspective. And like we've been saying, this story is still developing. The very next official statement, the next verified piece of info, it could change everything we think we know about this incident. What we've discussed today is really just the first chapter. We will definitely keep following this story. Stay subscribed for clearer, deeper analysis from Africa Watch 360.